I think one of the most powerful things veterans bring to the civilian world is understanding the commander's intent. And what I mean by commander's intent is we're going to go on this mission. We're going to try to achieve this objective. And here's what you call your left limit and your right limit. The commander, who's now your customer, right? They have an intent, or they have a goal, or they have some type of objective they're trying to get to. And how do I move towards that intent? It's a very powerful discipline, I think, that veterans can bring to the table as far as understanding the objective and then, hey, where can I operate?
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Incident Report presented by Quest Technology Management. I'm Paul Burke, Director of Technology Communications. Every week, I'm joined by VP of Sales and Partnerships, Adam Burke. The Incident Report brings you conversations with thought leaders, business innovators, and channel mavericks to help you stay productive and agile in a changing technology landscape. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Incident Report. I'm your host, Paul Burke. Well, I'm one of your hosts. Across from me, Adam Burke. How are you doing?
Good, Paul. Excited to be here. It is the first Monday Night Football of 2022. Excited for the game tonight. The games yesterday were a disaster. I lost every single bet that I made on DraftKings, which was horrible. But it's looking up. Gonna make it all back tonight. Chasing hard, playing on tilt.
That's how it works, Adam. You lose it all up front, you make it back on one bet. That's just gambling 101. That's just good advice.
Yes, we'll put the 800 number for a problem gambler in the show notes.
Yeah, quick note, being sarcastic there.
The Niners lost to the Chicago Bears, which I think they should perform ritual sumuku on the 50-yard line for that one. But that was terrible. That
was really rough to watch. Around the third quarter, it was like a slow motion, like, oh, this is really happening. They're really going to lose this game.
I don't know what the heck happened. And then the Patriots lost to the Dolphins, which I didn't even know the Dolphins had a pro team anymore. I thought they were just the showpiece. But yeah.
The Packers lost. The Packers lost to Minnesota. How surprising is that?
I know. I mentioned I lost all my money, so it's all gone. So we'll be working for a while, which is good.
Turns out that wasn't a lock.
It definitely was not. It was not a lock at all. But we digress.
Yeah, Adam, you know what also isn't a lock? Your security as a company, okay? Because there's hackers, there's ransomware. How about that for a pivot?
Nice transition, and so subtle, very subtle.
It's very subtle. So I was looking through stories to discuss today, Adam. I found one. I ran it by you. You said, I think we should talk about this because it's very relevant, and it's a situation that you dealt with too. Transitioning out of the military and companies that hire veterans. So this article is brought to us by the Military Times, and it discusses a service called SkillBridge.
I read the article. I think it's fantastic. We could definitely dive into SkillBridge a little bit more. I obviously came back to, our family's company in 2010 after doing 4 years active duty. With most of my time was with the 101st Airborne Division, a 3rd Brigade combat team, Rakkasans. So it was a different environment coming back to civilian. You come from kind of a higher paced tempo operational environment where I was an infantry rifle platoon leader and then executive officer and kind of bounced around with them for a while. And you come into the civilian world, but IT is one of those things, and partnerships is one of those things that I think veterans have the ability to adapt into that pretty quickly. There are rules of engagement. There's rules to the channel. There's rules to things that are okay to do that you learn. So you can, as long as you can kind of transition, hey, we're not closing with and killing the enemy anymore. We're pursuing opportunities and trying to grow revenue. You can apply the same skill sets to a different mission. And I found it to be a lot of fun. I really latched on to we do a lot in disaster recovery, business continuity, and cybersecurity services. And those are all kind of defend, protect, plan, mitigate risks, and a lot of the controls that veterans deal with all the time around, okay, how are we going to make sure our people are safe on this mission? How are we going to reduce risk? How are we going to, set the objective, kind of keep the tempo that we want?
It's problem solving. It's like constant problem solving.
Exactly. Constant problem solving, constant teamwork. You got a teamwork dynamic, you got leadership, you got all sorts of different things you got to deal with. And the nice thing also is it's in the IT space, things are always changing, right? I just heard this term the other day called data ops, and it's probably not a new term, but it was a new term for me. And DevOps has been something that Quest has been tying into from a security standpoint and application development standpoint. And now you have data ops. So in combat roles and in military roles, things are always changing. New technology is always coming out. The enemy's always changing. You know, the enemy gets a vote. They're always changing their tactics. So you got to always kind of change yours. And that mindset in the cybersecurity world and in the IT world, things are always changing. They're not static. And that's, I think, a great opportunity for people who have that mindset, you know, to pursue a career in IT. It's a good transition.
I was wondering about that too, as my voice breaks. I was wondering about that too. It seems that a lot of people think, and I mean, I even thought that the military is very rigid, it's very structured, and it is. But one thing that, I mean, you've let me know many times is that you have to adapt, whether it's in the field or you know, planning. Adaptation is everything, which I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that one of the reasons that you think veterans are so good in the channel, because it's all about adapting to what the client needs?
Yeah, so the structure of the military, it is a bureaucracy. You know, the Department of Defense, and you get your orders and you get your placement, and you get on your career track or whatever you're doing. And yeah, there's definitely some bureaucracy that can be challenging. But when you get to your units and when you get to your job, you get a left and right limit, and you get to understand what's called the commander's intent. I think one of the most powerful things veterans bring to the civilian world is understanding the commander's intent. And what I mean by commander's intent is, we're going to go on this mission. We're going to go to try to achieve this objective. And here's what you call your left limit and your right limit. When you're firing down range, you oftentimes you'll give your machine gunner, just as an example, or whatever your weapon system. Hey, don't fire past this left side. Don't fire past this right side, because you could kill friendly people, right? So you get a left limit and a right limit. And as you're moving towards what the commander has told you, this is your job to achieve. So if you can take commander's intent into the business world, into the channel, or into sales, you're trying to understand that outcome of what the commander, who's now your customer, right? They have an intent, or they have a goal, or they have some type of objective they're trying to get to. And if you can try to, you know, get them to share with you, okay, what's my left limit and my right limit? Where do I not want to go? And how do I move towards that intent? It's a very powerful discipline, I think, that veterans can bring to the table, as far as understanding, you know, the objective, and then, you know, hey, where can I operate? What can I do to achieve that mission, that end state? It's a very powerful concept. I think veterans get a little bit of a leg up because they've had that drilled into them so often.
I've never heard of that idea, but that's really interesting. So it's called the left and the right?
Oh, left and right limit, right?
Left and right limit.
Yeah. What are your constraints on the left? What are your constraints on the right? And what objective are you trying to get to? I mean, a really simple way to think about it is you're trying to get to a hilltop, and you got friendlies on this side and you got friendlies on this side. And how can you maneuver to get on top of that hilltop without hurting your friendly buddies on your left and your right? So that's your left limit. That's your right limit. You can move within this box to get on top of that hill. So if you can apply that to, hey, we gotta back up, 20 terabytes of data. It has to be recoverable within this amount of time, and we only have this amount of money. This much budgeted for this. That's your left limit and your right limit, right? That has to be recovered this fast, and we have this much capital to get it done. Can you help? And then you get to go to work. You get to go figure out, that constraint on the budget might not be realistic, or no, we can do that. Yeah, here's some options that we could maneuver to get that done.
You know what? One thing I've noticed talking to veterans, and you'll do this too, and I appreciate it, is you're very direct and you're very clear. There's not a lot of flowery language. You're getting really clear. You're getting to the point. This is my sentence objective, and I'm going to achieve it with the least number of words. Do you think that's helpful in business, in the channel, being really clear as a communicator?
I think it depends on who your audience is. I've got some feedback from some partners in the past, like, hey, Adam, that was pretty direct. You probably could have said that in a different way. Like,
okay, got it.
So it can be very good, especially like you can get on a phone call, and I got some buddies in the channel who, a couple ex operator type guys, and you could tell just by the language everyone uses, you could tell who people are who have previous experience similar to yours. But for non folks like that, sometimes a little over direct. You gotta know who your audience is. We talk about personality types all the time at Quest, right? Like you have your high E's, which are results driven people who are, result, low patience. Then you have your T's who are, a little more kumbaya, let's talk it out, let's all get to consensus, let's all figure it out together. Then you have your M's who are collaborative, let's have a good time, let's tell funny stories, let's go out and, enjoy the nightlife or whatever. Then you got your high A's who are your accountants and your detail people. So you get a blend of everybody. Me in a room full of T's is not always the best scenario.
That's funny. That's true. Like if you ever sit down with Tim sometime, he will definitely like be like, oh, that person's such a T. Oh, that person's a real M over there. It's very funny.
Yeah, knowing who you are too when you're going to those situations is like, yeah, I better shift the angle here, because I had some cool experiences overseas where I got to understand other cultures and how they interact, right? So you would be going into a new village, a new area of operation, and they had a command and control structure in the areas where I was, where it's, you had a town sheikh and he was in charge of these families and they were all Sunni or Shia, and it depended on, okay, the Iraqi army is obviously of this mind track and this version of Islam, and his people aren't, and they don't go on each other's land. And it's a different, you got to kind of understand, okay, what are you dealing with and how do you adjust your organization to deal with it or not?
And not judge it, because I think that's like judging it does nothing for your goal. You know what I mean? Like just understanding it sounds like that's the key, or one of the keys to moving forward.
Yeah, and that's where I think veterans do a great job in the IT space, because you got to understand, okay, what tools does my organization have to deal with this threat, right? And you don't, like you said, you're not necessarily judging it or passing judgment on it, but you're like, okay, these are the resources I have, and these are the rules of engagement. How do I get it done?
So I have a question. I hope it's going to make sense. Adam, do you feel veterans learn quicker or are more interested in learning quicker because adapting to new situations is so vital in the field?
I think that depends on the person. So hired veterans is great. The mindset and trying to transition to the civilian world is fantastic for a lot of them. There are some gotchas, right? There could be certain areas where, hey, in the military, I did this job, and this was the book that I did this job from, and this was the procedure, and that's the procedure, and that's what I'm comfortable with. I'm comfortable with a by the book procedural type of a job. You don't want to take that person and all of a sudden throw them into a dynamic environment where they got to be making quick decisions based on intuition or experience, right? That's setting them up for failure. Willing to learn, willing to get training, willing to get updates, absolutely. But you still have to assess the candidate for what their skills are. Are they an awesome, truck driver who can, show up to work on time and, always get the freight to where it needs to be? Cool. Put that person in a job that, is going to be basically, results oriented, and they have a point A and a point B, right? Doesn't have to be just necessarily hauling truckloads, but it could be, hey, I got to get from point A to point B. These are my time constraints, and here's how I got to do it. It could be something else, but I still think you got to definitely assess the person for what their strengths are. And one thing that veterans are used to is very direct feedback as far as their performance. There's really nowhere to hide in a PT test. You can either do the push-ups or you can't. You can either run 2 miles or you can't. You can either answer the question correctly on a land navigation course. You either can make it from point A to point B or you can't. So that is something that is good. They, from a leadership perspective, when you're bringing veterans on, direct feedback, honest feedback. Where are you succeeding? Where are you failing? Where can you, coachability is, if they're successful in the military, they've been able to be coached.
Do you think veterans are more unfazed by problems? You mentioned adaptation is important, but in the moment when things fall apart, are veterans more even keel?
I think that also depends on the person. I think if they can kind of tier that down. Sometimes you can be too amped up. Like I've been too amped up on opportunities before where you got to kind of remind yourself like, hang on, dude, like not life and death. No one's shooting at you here.
Okay.
Like you missed it. Hey, let's regroup. Let's do a little after action report, figure out what's happening. Let's do it better next time.
Was it hard? Was it hard for you to make the adjustment from military to Quest?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't. I mean, obviously, I was very, very fortunate, to be coming into a family business and get coached, by leadership here at Quest. And here's how you can succeed. Here's how you can. But it's different, and it's something you have to invest mentally in the transition for sure.
How long do you think it took, like, for you to mentally transition and to be like, okay, this is my new pattern in life?
I think it was probably a good 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Good 2 to 3 years of like, okay, here's the new roles. Here's the new, it's a totally different mindset. Here's the thing and there's people who are coming off who are lifers, right? Who've been in for 20 plus years. I was in for 4 active and two reserve, right? So my transition, wasn't that big of a deal, but there are people who've been doing it for 10 years, 20 years. That's all they've known. They joined up when they're 18 and now they're, 48 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You still got 20, 30 years of, good working years to figure out. I think it does take a little bit of a switch, but great community out there, a lot of people to talk to, good outlets for that kind of stuff.
Since we might have veterans listening to this or people who are about to move out of that part of their life, like what helped you? I mean, obviously the leadership helped you, but were there books that helped you? Were there podcasts that helped you? A big picture of Jocko on your wall every day? Like, what helped you?
We gotta get some Ranger authors and movies out there, man. You get
mix it up.
All these Navy SEALs. I mean, Navy SEALs are great. I love them, but get some Army Ranger activity going on here. No, yeah. So I'm a huge fan of Jocko's leadership books. So Dichotomy of Leadership. He's got a cool leadership strategy and tactics book. Extreme Ownership. He's got kid books. I'm a huge Jocko fan.
Adam, maybe you're the first. Maybe you can pen that Great American Army Ranger novel.
Well, actually, there was a cool book that just came out called Scars and Stripes. I apologize if I butchered that, but it's by Tim Kennedy and Nick from I butcher his last name all the time, but they're the guys who they just did a documentary on Send Me. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. It's called Send Me. It's about they put a team together and went over to help evacuate and get people out of Afghanistan before that all fell apart.
Oh, wow.
Really, really, really cool guys. But yeah, he was a Green Beret, and then Nick was a Ranger. So you know what? Rangers and Army guys are getting good press. So I'll retract that. But yeah, those are good books to check out, the leadership books. And then I'm a big team person, right? I love being part of teams, being in the Army, being a football guy, being part of a team. Sometimes when you leave active duty for veterans, it can be a bit of a shock because now you're not necessarily part of a team anymore, right? You don't have that kind of that cohesion, that unit cohesion, that single mission, that kind of a thing. So find something that can supplement that, whether it's physical fitness or join like a jiu-jitsu gym or a CrossFit box or, a local team or a church or something like that. Find something that can supplement that team dynamic, because in the veteran community, that's definitely a transition point that can be a challenge for some folks when they leave active duty. You kind of all of a sudden you don't have that uniform on anymore, and you don't have that team anymore. So getting into cybersecurity, being part of a security operations organization, having that purpose and that team camaraderie is, even as a salesperson, being part of a sales team or a unit and having like joint goals. Hey, we're going to go sign up new partners, and we're going to go, get some new opportunities on the books, and we're going to go do some of that stuff. You get a mission oriented person like that. After that, it's a great thing. That was a big one for transitioning out of active duty for me, was finding that team dynamic.
Wow. I'd never thought of that before, but that makes so much sense. Thanks for sharing that. That's going to help a lot of people.
Yep.
And Adam, could you take a second explaining SkillBridge? Because I know at Quest, we use SkillBridge to hire veterans. What does SkillBridge offer veterans?
Yeah, SkillBridge is a great program. If your company hasn't looked into it, you absolutely should. It's a program that's sponsored by the Department of Defense. And basically what it does is if you have someone who's PCSing or transitioning out of active duty from any of the branches within 180 days, so basically 6 months, you have the opportunity to bring them onto your company, as basically the Department of Defense continues to pay them their salary as, whatever job they're currently in. So if they're a mechanic, or if they're an infantryman, or if they're a pilot, or whatever they are, they continue to get their pay, but they work for your organization, basically learning your skill set and whatever craft they're going to be using when you hire them after they transition out. So it's a win-win. You get to bring someone on board at relatively low or no cost to the company. Department of Defense continues to pay that person's wages while they transition off active duty. And then when they transition off active duty, you have someone who's been involved in your company for the past, up to 6 months. So the hiring and transition fees and onboarding are significantly reduced. It's a fantastic program. We've leveraged it. We've used it for bringing folks on to, I know some of our folks in network operations, security operations, and policy teams have come on board from SkillBridge, and it's a great. We should probably put a link to the SkillBridge website in the notes.
Absolutely.
So if anyone wants to use it, it's a great program. A lot of folks transitioning off active duty, looking for their next opportunity. It's a great way to do that.
And again, if you want to learn more about SkillBridge or read the article, both will be linked in the description. Adam, anything else in the article you'd like to discuss?
Talking my own book here a little bit. Definitely a fan of the veteran community. I think it is a good thing for folks to hire from that resource pool. A lot of good talent available. So I was excited when you saw that article, and we were able to chat about it today. So if anyone's got any questions or anything like that, always, like we say, we're always open to help. If you got anything like that you want to partner up on, or any ideas around it, please let us know.
Yes, thank you, Adam. I always forget to mention that, but you can always reach out to us at the incident report at questsys.com. That link is also in the description. So, Adam, what's coming up this week?
Well, hopefully my football bets go better next weekend.
Oh man,
yeah, it's brutal. Nothing too crazy, Looking forward to getting after it this week. Got some good opportunities coming through. Next week we are going to be at Avant Special Forces in Austin, Texas, which is always an amazing event. So really looking forward to that. Going to be meeting with some partners down there, and we'll be at the Special Forces event, kind of in line with our veteran talk today. Avant Special Forces coming up next week in, I think, the 19th to the 21st.
Nice, awesome, cool.
Yeah.
I think this week I'm finally going to sit down, Adam, and watch a little House of the Dragon.
I'm not sure which one I like, which geek out I like more, the House of Dragons or the new Rings of Power. It's a little bit of a toss up right now for me, as far as I'm a character guy. I got to care about the characters or else I'm out. I'm still trying to figure out if I care about the characters or not.
So next week, not only are we bringing you tech news, but we're going to talk a little House of Dragon and a little Lord of the Rings.
Yes. And if anyone would like to send money to Adam's GoFundMe for NFL bets, we'll put that link in there as well.
Absolutely. Look forward to the Help Adam Fund. Have a good week, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening. The Incident Report is brought to you by Quest Technology Management. With over 40 years of experience, Quest is a leading technology integrator working seamlessly with your staff and systems to achieve your IT goals. Learn more about everything they do at questsys.com. And if you have questions or suggestions for the podcast, you can always email Adam and myself at theinциdentreport@questsys.com. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.